Happy July! How are you? I hope you are well. I am great halfway through the year, and I wanted to talk to you about all the books I've read so far this year. So these are the books that I've read between January and June of 2026, and I put them into categories. They're probably not categories that anyone else has ever created. Um, but the categories I put them into are prequels because those are just sort of their own thing because they're part of a story that's already been established. I've read three series, and then um, oh God, it's like 40 novels. So I put them into prequel series perfectly fine. So let me give you a caveat first. I finished all of these. So the fact that I finished them means that I enjoyed them. Like if I'm even halfway through and I'm like, I am not getting anything out of this, I put it down. So there's not going to be a lot of complaints on this list, really. It's more how much did I like it or how much did I enjoy it because I did finish every one of these books. Okay. So there's Perfectly Fine, which I finished it. I enjoyed it. End of the story. The next category I have is Great Book. Too bad the ending wasn't also great. I enjoyed every minute, but I didn't keep thinking about it. And I enjoyed it so much, I can't stop thinking about it. So those are my categories. I'm going to go through them by category. And hopefully you will enjoy and maybe get a couple of ideas or more of some things you might want to read this year. Not nowhere, I think there's like one book that came out this year on the list. So, hi. I'm Elizabeth. My pronouns are she, her, and I'm really glad you're here because I'm going to talk to you about all the books I've read so far in 2026. Okay, I'm going to start with prequels because they're part of their own universe and they were easy, quick reads because they were prequels and I already knew the universes and the characters and whatnot. Neither of them were mind-blowing or changed things dramatically for me of those universes, but I did finish both of them. So the first is a prequel to the Hub series, which is a Matt Shaw series, and Matt Shaw is one of those authors that some of his stuff you have to purchase directly from his website as a PDF because Amazon won't carry it and no one else will because the topics he's covering are so subversive and upsetting, and like this series is probably the most upsetting series I've ever read, like the most disturbing. I did a lot of, why am I reading this? But I do take on some reading things as challenges that I want to finish and I'm going to get through. So that's usually how that works. So this was just a little bit more information about one of the people who was running the terrible place called the Hub, and gave you just a little more information about why he ended up sort of grooming a girl that he ends up grooming later on in the story. The prequel was fine. It wasn't honestly, when I closed it I was like, well, that wasn't necessary, but I finished it, so keep that in mind. The sequels to there was originally, it was just a trilogy, and there's a sequel to the trilogy, and I really enjoyed that I thought was great, much better than the prequel. Of course, I read that in 2025. Okay, the next prequel I read was to the novel Playground by Aron Beauregard. This is another splatterpunk, really, really disturbing story. Playground is the story of a playground that is fatal, and a woman who hates children and invites families to try her playground, and the children, for the most part, don't make it out. And in a lot of ways, each of the challenges that the kids are faced with are a lot like the Saw challenges. It's really disturbing. Anyway, Child of Divorce, a playground prequel is what I read, and it was like the beta test of the playground. So while in the playground, the main story, the main novel, you get the story of the families that are the first ones to really try the playground. In Child of Divorce, it's the beta test. It's the one that doesn't quite go as well as they'd like it to go, and it's, you know, it's more of the same characters and the same stuff, and you know, this is prequel, so it's before anything's been resolved. I did like it better than Rose, but again, not world shattering or changing, but it did add a little more to the story, which I thought was cool, especially since Playground only is one book, so to have a little prequel is kind of nice. Okay, I read 3 series, 2 of them very sort of dark, splatterpunk, upsetting, full of trigger warning kind of series. So the first one is the Dollhouse Trilogy by Ryan J. Powell. And this series consists of 3 books, Dollface, Puppet, Dolly and Pip, and then there's a prequel, Dollface the Awakening. But I still see it as a trilogy because I think the prequel is just like the prequel. And this is the story, each one is an individual story about a child who has been severely abused, and the toy that has witnessed this abuse coming to life and perpetrating abuse onto the abuser. Now, I don't know what it says about me, but I absolutely love when the evil character gets the treatment that they've been putting onto innocent characters. So these were great. I mean, you got very little of the abuse on the children. Like, it was just sort of like a, yes, this terrible thing has been happening, but we're not going to focus so much on that. We're going to focus on the terrible abuse that we do to the person who had been abusing this child, which I get a sick sense of pleasure out of. I don't know what that says about me. But that's the Dollhouse Trilogy. And the prequel is just the creation of the first toy. Okay, Fairy Tales for Freaks is by Anne Snow, and it is, she takes fairy tales and twists them around and make them stories of severe abuse. So the 3 that I read were Ugly Duckling, 2 Little Piggies, and Goldilocks and the 3 Men. There, I believe she just came out with a Red Riding Hood version, but I have not read it. And they were I mean, I finished them. I enjoyed them. They were very short, but I can't tell you a whole lot of details about them, which definitely says a lot about whether it made an impression on me or not. So Fairy Tales for Freaks is the second series I read. And then the third series I read is the Edge of Collapse series by Kyla Stone. There are actually 8 books, and I read, I believe, 6 of them. There's 2 more left, and I am sort of saving them because I really, really enjoyed. But the 6th book sort of wrapped up a main portion of the plot, and I kind of feel like the last 2 books are going to be like a really fun vacation read for me. Now, the reason that I started this series, I'm not really someone who usually reads series because it's a lot of commitment. It's an apocalyptic book, right? Apocalyptic series. And an EMP blast is what causes everything to collapse. Now, an EMP blast in this book is caused by a nuclear bomb going off in our atmosphere, which will not affect us with nuclear radiation or anything like that, but it does stop all the electronics to stop working and never work again. Cannot be fixed, just broken, unless they're kept in a Faraday case. That's a whole other story. And the reason that I wanted to read this was because the way that this story starts is that a woman who has been captured by a predator who has been keeping her prisoner in his shed or his basement. It was basement. It's his basement for 5 years. And all of a sudden the EMP blast hits, and that crazy huge locked door keeping her inside is unlocked. and she can get out. And it's fascinating because at the very beginning, she doesn't even think to try the door. She's just like, oh, he must be torturing me. He turned off the heat. He turned off the lights. And it doesn't even occur to her for hours to even try the door. Like, that's how beaten down she is after 5 years. But she's got an incredible, she's a great, resilient character. And when she finally gets out of the basement and the house, she runs into somebody who is very, very helpful in getting her to safety. And the series is really neat because the first book is this woman, getting out and her captor trying to find her and her meeting up with this other man who can help her. And in the second one I read was the prequel. In the prequel, you find out what happens to the man that she runs into, how he got to where he was to run into her. And then the second book of the series, which is actually the third book, is about the family that the woman left behind. So her son and her husband and their whole town. And I think it's not until the third or fourth book that we start hearing all of their stories and how they all interplay. And it's a really, really neat book. And it's got some really interesting takes on the human condition and what some people are willing to do to survive and what some people are willing to do to protect those around them, and how that's a very different kind of person. But the Edge of Collapse series and the books that I read were, in the order that I read them, were Edge of Collapse, which is the first book, then Chaos Rising, which is the prequel, then Edge of Madness, Edge of Darkness, Edge of Anarchy, and Edge of Defiance. And those were the books that I've already read. Like I said, there's 2 left, and I'm really excited to finish them, but I'm waiting until I have like a vacation to do it. Okay, so the next group is the ones that were perfectly fine. So I finished all these books. They were, like I said, perfectly fine, but I'm not still thinking about them. Some of them I have a hard time remembering, like the details, or I'm just like, oh yeah, that one, it was fine. I got through it, I enjoyed it, but it didn't change my world. Okay, so the first one and these are just in alphabetical order. So the first one on this list is Blue Jay by Megan Stockton. And Blue Jay, when I was going through my list of the books that I read this year, I was like, Blue Jay, what was Blue Jay about? And the only reason that I couldn't quite remember was because the title isn't that connected to the story. So in a lot of ways, a lot of titles, you're like, oh yeah, that's that one, because that's the title. But this is the story of 3 adult men who are, young father age. Not all of them are fathers. I think only one of them is a father, but 2 of them are married, I think. The third has maybe a girlfriend, I don't know. But there's 3 of them. They've been friends forever, and they love scary, haunty, freaky stuff. They are huge horror fans. They love a good haunt. They love, they love to be scared. And one of them, I think the one who isn't married and doesn't have kids, finds a way to access an online rival's email. And this is someone who gets to go to all the best haunts, and like this is their full-time job. They get to go to everything, and this character is pretty jealous, and so he sort of hacks his way into the email, and he finds an invitation to a haunt, and he contacts them as if he is this other guy and says, me and 2 of my friends are coming, make sure you have tickets for us, and gets all the details and tells his friends, and then they decide to go. And Blue Jay is the safe word they're given. So that's why I have a hard time remembering, because it's just like, oh, there's a safe word, Blue Jay. But when he says Blue Jay, it doesn't work, because it's not a haunted house. It's a place where people are lured to be killed. And there were definitely scenes in it that I was like, this is scary. Like, this is really scary. I'm glad I'm just reading a book, It was a neat story. Like I said, I made it all the way through. It was fine. There are some very scary parts. It was well written enough that I could really picture what was going on, which was really neat. So that's Blue Jay by Megan Stockton. Okay. Die My Love by Ariana Harwicz. Now, this is an example of me being sucked in by pop culture because Die My Love is a movie that came out. I don't know if it came out this year or last year, at the end of last year, at the beginning of this year, but it's starring Robert Pattinson and Jennifer Lawrence. And I heard an interview. I have not seen the movie. I didn't see the movie. But I did see an interview with Jennifer Lawrence, and she's saying that the I think it was the director called her and said, have you read Die My Love? I really want to turn this into a movie. And her response was, how in the world are you ever going to turn Die My Love into a movie? And those were the only words I needed to hear. I was like, now I want to read this and I want to see how it is that they get. And it was good. It was kind of bell jar-esque in that it is the story told from the point of view of a woman who's sort of losing her mind. And she's not connected rationally with the world. And a lot of it is stream of consciousness, which is why it's like, how can you possibly turn this into a movie? This is this woman's stream of consciousness, and she's losing her mind. But I mean, I finished it, I enjoyed it, and I was like, I don't know how they're going to turn that into a movie, and I didn't see the movie. But she's a little more aware of herself than Sylvia Plath in Bell Jar, but because it's more modern, I think it's more harrowing because it's more modern and it's something that you can relate to a lot better than Sylvia Plath living in New York in what it was like the 60s, I think, 50s or 60s. So, and things have changed a lot since then. So, Die My Love is definitely the story of a woman losing her mind and losing reality and losing who she is when she becomes a mother and wife, and it's cool. The next one on this list is Hard Luck Jenny by David Sodergen. David Sodergen wrote one of the books that I really, really enjoyed that I read this year. So I was like, oh, this one's short. Let me read this. And it was one of those stories that, I mean, it wasn't the best story I've ever read, but the end was like, oh my God, I can't believe that's how it ended. This is just, oh. And it's just one of those books where it starts with a guy saying, the biggest issue in my life is that I have a tiny bladder and I'm going to have to stop at this crazy looking bar because I have to pee. And when he gets in there, he gets sort of like sucked in and they just manipulate him and control him. And I'm just going to leave it at that. But it's a crazy little book. And the end, like I said, just blew my mind. Okay, next I read The Hellbound Heart by Clive Barker. It's the book that Hellraiser is based on. And it was one that it's always on everyone's lists, and I'd never read it. And I think I saw Hellraiser a long time ago. I mean, I definitely did, and I remember thinking it was really gross, and the Cenobites were gross and everything. But The Hellbound Heart was really the story of Hellraiser. I mean, basically that's what it was. So it was kind of like reading The Exorcist after seeing the Exorcist movie. You know, it was good. It was really good. I got, a little more information out of it, but I mean, I liked The Hellbound Heart better than Hellraiser, for sure, but it's a really dark story, really dark, and not as detailed as the dark stories that are written today. So even though it's a really dark story, it didn't feel as dark as what I'm used to. If that makes any sense. And then I read How I Live Now by Meg Rosoff. This was a little palate cleanser for me. This is the story of a teenage American girl who goes over to England to live with her aunt and cousins because her father's gotten remarried after her mother died, and the new stepmom doesn't really get along with the daughter, so she gets sent, shipped overseas, where she's in England in the countryside when World War III breaks out. And she is with her cousins who she's just met for the first time, and she has to deal with war and just everything that goes with that. It is very disturbing because it's war, and I mean, there are a few things that are more disturbing than when human beings decide to organize and kill each other. war never made any sense to me. So that is my perfectly fine list. They're all perfectly fine. I finished them all. They were entertaining. My next list, it's only 3, is great book. Too bad the ending wasn't also great. So the first one on this list is The Deep by Nick Cutter. Nick Cutter is probably best known for The Troop, which I read years ago and loved. So creepy, so disturbing, so great. The Deep is about a research project that's going on at the bottom of the Marin Trench. And there's 3 scientists that are down there, and they're working on this substance that's been found, a substance that eradicates cancer. They have a mouse that's got cancer. They introduce this substance to the mouse, and the cancer is gone. But, excuse me, but of course there's so much more to it than just the cancer's gone, right? And the brother of one of the scientists, the main scientist's brother actually, I think he's a veterinarian, and they get a message from the research lab at the bottom of the Marin Trench that is the scientist reaching out to his brother and saying, you need to come down here, I need you down here, you need to come down here. And they're like, well, it's the only thing we've received, so let's get him down there. Maybe he'll help him, his brother begin to communicate with us again so we can figure out what's going on again. Because there's also this terrible disease on Earth that is destroying people. So that's like the really big motivation to like find this substance and make sure that it can really save humans and humanity. And somewhere near the end, it gets so sci-fi. I mean, I like sci-fi as long as it's believable, but this got so sci-fi that it almost lost me. There's like this hole in the wall they're getting sucked into, which I don't understand because they're underwater in a facility and they're changing and their memories are... It was really, really cool until it got to that really, really sci-fi sort of ending. The ending was great. That I really enjoyed. The very end, the wrap up. But before we got there, it got really out there, and it was hard for me to follow. So The Deep, Nick Cutter is a wonderful author who does a really good job of putting you into the space that he's describing, and it was very creepy and very claustrophobic once they were in the research facility. Honestly, the claustrophobia started when they got in the ship that took them to the Mariana Trench. And that was really cool too. So the second book on this list is Wonderland by Jennifer Hillier. And Wonderland is a sort of murder mystery, missing person mystery, female police officer, well, female detective really. And there was some controversy at her old job in Seattle and she had to leave. So she ends up in this little town that is like the whole economic basis for this community is Wonderland, which is a amusement park. So it's not Disney, it's not Universal, it's like a, more of a local amusement park, but one of those local ones that people come from, 5, 6, 7, 8 miles, 8-hour drive away. So, while it's not Disney, it's definitely, like all the kids in the town work there, all of them. I mean, like, why would you get a summer job anywhere else? And, there are some people that started working there when they were 18 or 20 and they're still there and they're 45. So it's been there for a really long time. It has a lot of history. It's gone through, different owners, what have you. But it starts with one of the young men who's employed there climbing up the Wonder Wheel, which is the huge, sounds like a Ferris wheel. And he's a free climber. So he climbs up the Wonder Wheel and takes a selfie from the top and posts it immediately. And then goes missing. So like everyone sees this picture of him on the Wonder Wheel, whatever, on this huge you know, amusement park piece of equipment. And he posts these pictures and he says, you know, screw you to Wonderland. And you find out why later. And then a dead body is found at the foot of that structure, but it's not him. It's a boy who's been missing for 5 years, but he only just died. Like, what is going on? And then the police officer realizes that there's actually a lot of young men that have gone missing. And when I say young men, I mean 18, 19. So, you know, over 18, but not, you know, brain's not done kind of age. And the problem with this one was really interesting. The way that like some of the stuff worked together, it was really neat. But by the time we got to the actual perpetrator, he wasn't even a secondhand character. He was such like a background character that I was like, that's a cop out. Like, I don't know anything about this person. You just sort of were like, oh, well, I mentioned him, so let's use him as the person. Like, I just, again, felt like a cop out to me. But it was a very entertaining book. But it was another one of those palate cleansers for me because it wasn't horribly, horribly disturbing. So, okay, the third one on this list, Yesteryear by Caro Claire Burke. Now, this is the one that came out in 2026. It went kind of viral. I read it because I heard the premise and thought, oh my God, that's awesome. It's the story of a modern day trad wife who has an Instagram or TikTok, I can't remember which one, following of over 1 million people. She has a little house, a little farm, I'm sorry. It's kind of like the Ballerina Farm based on ish. So there's this incredible farmhouse and this incredible farm, and they've got, I think, 5 or 6 kids, and it seems like she's always pregnant. And in her kitchen, there's a Dutch oven, but really no other appliances. But behind the walls, where the cameras aren't invited, is the dishwasher and the microwave and the oven and all the things, you know, the smoothie maker and the, you know. So she says that she's trad wifing, but you know, it's not like her husband is running the farm by himself. He hires day workers every day, 20 to 30 of them every day, but never mentions them. She also has 2 nannies, never comes up on her social medias ever. And what happens is that this woman wakes up in 1855 and has to live an actual traditional life. And I laughed out loud a lot because this character, she is just awful. She is so narcissistic. She is so selfish to the detriment of everyone around her. She thinks she's doing it right, and anyone who does it differently is doing it wrong. And I mean, she was fascinating, just how awful this woman was. And so when she woke up in 1855, or she had to do laundry by hand and her fingers are freezing in the cold water, I'm laughing at her. Now, the reason it's the ending was an issue for me was I didn't love the explanation as to why and how she woke up in 1855. But that didn't end up being the actual end of the book. And the end of the book was great. I loved the way that this book ended. So it's probably not fair to put it into this, you know, it was great, but the ending wasn't. Because it was sort of before the ending. It was the explanation of waking up in 1855 that felt like a cop-out to me. But the rest of it was very entertaining. And like I said, I just did a lot of laughing out loud. And I did a lot of like, can I tell you about what I'm reading? I'm reading this book called Yesteryear. It's been trad wife who wakes up in 1855, and people are just like, oh wow, that sounds really interesting. So and it was. So okay, so my next list is longer. It is I enjoyed every minute, but I didn't keep thinking about it. So the first one on here is Dear Laura by Gemma Amor. I did a deep dive on this. It is the story of a girl who, when she's, I think, 15, her best friend and she, who grew up in the neighborhood together, been playing together every day for years and years and years, the night before go on their very first date, and they have their first kiss. and their relationship is changing. It's very sweet. And they go to the same bus stop, and because they grew up near each other. And she is at the bus stop and then realizes she forgot something. She runs back to her house, and she's coming out of her house, and as she's coming out of her house, she sees, her best friend, hopefully future boyfriend, getting into a car with an older man and driving off. And no one ever sees him again. And a few days after he goes missing, Laura starts receiving these really strange letters saying, I know where your friend is, and if you will do the things that I request of you, I will make sure that you will get to see him again. And this continues on into her fully adult life. Okay, like she's married with a kid. Like I think she's in her 40s by the time the whole story wraps up. It's fascinating. The things that he makes her do are awful, and the way it concluded was really neat, really dark, but enjoyable. The next one on my list is 8 Cases of Jane by R.J. Powell. This is another one I did a deep dive on. This is about a serial killer teenager who has killed 8 different people, and she is in a psychiatrist's office, and she is recounting everything that she did. And I'm going to leave it at that, but it's so good. I mean, really smart. So in each case, she invokes the different name of a female from, our most classic literature. So they're mostly Bible women. It's Lilith and Bathsheba and I forget her name, Potiphar's wife, the one that hits on Joseph in the Joseph story, and he ends up in jail because of it. Jezebel is in it. Eve is in it. So there's a connection to religion that's really, really, really interesting, and it does end up going sort of in the Peter Blatty direction, if you know what I mean. Okay, so the next one on my list is The Final Tower. This was written by Elias Witherow. Now, Elias Witherow's book, The Black Farm and Return to the Black Farm, are the 2 videos that have done the best on my channel. And that was written by Elias Witherow. So when I asked subscribers and followers and watchers of my stuff if they were interested in me covering anything else, I got requests for other Elias Witherow books. So The Final Tower is one that I read. It's very sci-fi, very future apocalyptic. The world has fallen apart. There's been an invasion. There are these towers that have erupted, have arrived on the planet, and if you get too close to them, this like force field messes with you, and people who have been affected by the towers are now under their control, and their eyes are white, so you know exactly who these people are. The minute they open their eyes, you can tell that that's who they are. And there's 3 people, and they're trying to get to the person who seems to be the human in charge of this invasion, like the human that is helping this invasion. And first it's just like traveling and trying to get to where they need to get to and discovering what's going on with these towers, and then finding that person, and then figuring out that person and how they got involved, and then going on to, it goes into a very, very almost Paradiso kind of story where we're no longer on Earth, we're no longer on our planet, it's very out there, and I'm going to have to read it a few more times if I'm going to try to explain it fully to anyone. But I definitely read the whole thing and found it very entertaining. So the next on my list is Full Brutal by Christopher Triana. I read this after I posted The Abuse of Ashley Collins, which is a full description. someone, thank you, whoever you were, wrote, hey, if you liked this, you'd like Full Brutal. So Full Brutal is the story of a psychopath teenager who just sort of was like, oh, I'm this age. I should experience this now. What is the most destructive way that I can experience that? So like, she's like, I guess I should have sex. Okay, well, who's the most detrimental? I know, my English teacher, whose daughter is in my class, whose daughter I've made friends with. Like, I mean, what she does to this poor family and to all these people that get in her way, it's unbelievable. It was definitely one of those books where, like, if I was at work and reading it, people would be like, what is the face you're making? I'm like, oh yeah, I don't have a poker face at all. I wear how I'm feeling on my face. So that one was just like, oh my God, she did what? She did what? I mean, it was just full of trigger warnings, full of trigger warnings. The next on my list is The Har by David Sodergen. I mentioned that I had read something else by him. He wrote Hard Luck Jenny. I liked The Har much better. It's really, really good. So this takes place in a small town in, I can't remember if I think it's Scotland, but it's definitely the UK. And the main character is an octogenarian, which I absolutely adore because very few stories have the main character be an 80-year-old or 80-something-year-old. And she's been living there since she got married. She was married years ago. Her husband was a fisherman. That's why they live on the beach and, in a coastal town. And one day he went off fishing and didn't come back. And she wants to live out her life being close to all those memories with this man that she loves so much and spent her life with. And, they courted in this town on this beach and, she's got all these wonderful memories. So she's fighting a real estate developer who wants to make a golf course and has bought up most of the land in the town. I think at the beginning of the story, there's 7 holdouts that haven't sold. And the price got higher and higher and higher and higher and higher. But now it's gotten so high that they realize it doesn't matter how much they offer these people. They don't want money. And she even says that. She's like, your money will do me no good. What I want is to live here. And end my days here. So it doesn't matter how much money you give me because here is where I want to be. And so there's that whole fight going on. And when we meet the 7 people, they're meeting and having like a discussion about holding out, and I think they lose 2 more people. So there's only like 5 by the time they even just leave that opening meeting. And so there's that story going on, but she heads to the part of the island where they've had some wonderful memories, and she has some wonderful memories, and she's walking back to her house on the beach, and she encounters a creature. I think creature is the only thing we can call it. And she has to sort of gather it up into a bucket and carry it home, and she puts it into her bathtub because it seems to need water. And wackiness ensues. The end of this book was amazing. I was so happy with the end of this book, but I loved this character and how she was so strong in what she wanted and stuck with it. And I mean, the strength in this octogenarian was it was really cool. That's The Har by David Sodergen. And I thought it was it's almost a love story in the middle of a horror story. Almost, not quite. It wasn't like anything else I've ever read. It was really neat. Next on my list is The Island by Adrian McKinty. This one was really cool. I liked this one a lot. I didn't think I was going to like it as much as I did. So our main character is, I think she's 25. She's just married a 40-something-year-old man who has 2 children. I believe they are 10 and 12. 8 and 12. You know, they're like old enough that they're not little, you know, and old enough to have snark and be obnoxious and whatnot. And, you know, of course, they don't like her because she's not their mom. And this man is very, very wealthy, and they have gone on a trip to Australia, New Zealand, Australia. I don't remember. It was one or the other, Australian or New Zealand. And the kids had yet to see a koala, and they ran into someone who said, oh, you know, if you go over to this island, I can bring you over to this island, and there is a ton of koalas, and you will see so many, and you'll just love it. And then there's another family that's like, we'd love to see it too. And they all go over to this island. And once they are there, they are basically hunted. It explains very clearly why it happens and how it happens. And, you know, the people who live on the island are pretty unsavory. But I can't tell you too much more. But it was just it was just really neat to watch the growth of this, because this 25-year-old, she's still malleable. Do you know what I mean? Like this 40-something-year-old guy, he probably isn't so malleable, but the 25-year-old really is. And she is sort of more equipped to deal with this crazy situation they find themselves in. And I loved it. I thought it was really great. Okay, so the next one on my list is Mother Thing by Ainsley Hogarth. Talk about never reading a book like anything else. This book is so out there. I mean, people will say like, you know, the end went crazy or it blew my mind or what, like nothing I can say can properly explain how nutso the end of this book was. Like completely nutso. I was like, is this really happening? What am I reading? So Mother Thing is about a couple and, you know, husband and wife, and the husband's mother, so the mother-in-law of the wife. And she's got hoarding tendencies, she's got depression issues, she's had suicidal ideation, and recently she moved in with her son and her son's wife. And she's pretty rotten to the son's wife. She's very like, my son is the greatest thing ever. She's very boy mom. She's very like, any chance that she has to make a snide comment about her daughter-in-law, she will. And it won't just be snide, it'll be cruel. Like, she's just miserable. Like, and I don't know if it's borderline personality disorder, because there is a point at which they sort of mention that, where, you know, it's just whatever is important to her is what's important and nothing else is, and cruelty is fine to use. Anyway, she succeeds in one of her unaliving attempts, and the couple ends up being haunted by her. The husband is absolutely positive that her ghost is living with them, and the wife is just trying to figure out how to get her husband back from this depressive, horrible place he's in, thinking that his mom is haunting them. But that doesn't really cover what this story is about at all. It's about impotent men, and I don't mean sexually. I mean men who are weak and the women who control them. And the women who fall in love with the controlled man. If I had to give it like a theme, that's really what it's about. So out there. Okay, the next one on my list is by Naomi Salmon, and it is Nothing But the Rain. I did a deep dive on this one, or a full description on this one. It is, there's a small town, and it has been quarantined from the rest of the world. And when I say quarantined, I mean like they can't get the internet, they can't get TV, like live TV, they can't get news, they can't get, like, they're completely cut off, not just physically, but also informationally. And they obviously can't leave either. And it's always raining in their town. Sometimes it's a drizzle, sometimes it's a downpour, but the rain is dangerous, poisonous. It makes you forget. And you get a drop on you, and then you're going to forget why you walked into the other room, which is not something that any of us have a problem with. Like, I mean, especially if you're older, you've walked into a room and been like, why did I come in here? Um, it's just a human condition. But if you stay out there long enough, you're going to forget your name, your family members, the fact that you need to eat. So the story is told from the point of view of a woman who is kind of a recluse. She's, I think she's in her 50s or 60s. She's a doctor. She's been a doctor. And she lives like outside town, and it's just a little recluse. And but she's survived, and she's part of the group of this community that's trying to survive. And so like there's like, she has to check on someone every 2 weeks, and they have to check on her every 2 weeks. And then she's experimenting on trying to figure out how this water works and when it can be safe, and, you know, all sorts of things. And she's keeping a journal because it's the only way that she can remember things. And then at one point her journal just goes missing, and she's like, oh, well, I'm starting over. Here's what's happening. And everything is different because she's forgotten and she doesn't have her old stuff. It's great. The end is, ends matter to me. The end is amazing and heartbreaking and disturbing and great and all those things wrapped up into one. Okay, next is Seed by Anna Alborn. I did a full description on this one as well. This is a very scary book. This is on a lot of people's disturbing book list. It is about a family, mother, father, 2 children, 2 daughters. One is 8, I think, 8, 9, and one is 5. And the father of this family ran away from home when he was 15 or 16 years old and never looked back. His parents never came looking for him. He knows he suffered through a lot of abuse when he was a child, but he doesn't really think about his past. He doesn't really remember a lot of it. And he's just thrilled that he got into this other town. He hitchhikes out of town. He gets dropped off in this other town. He makes friends with this kid right away. And his mom, who has suffered her own abuses as a child, takes in the man who would end up becoming the husband of this family, and raises him the rest of the way. So when his daughter, his 5-year-old daughter, starts behaving oddly, he starts to remember his own odd behavior when he was a child. And he starts to discover that what had haunted him is now haunting his daughter. And I'm going to leave it at that. It was really good, really scary. Like, really like, oh God, that's not really happening, is it? Kind of stuff. These Silent Woods by Kimmy Cunningham Grant. This was another palette cleanser for me. I really, really enjoyed this, but part of it was probably because I needed the palette cleanser. So These Silent Woods is the story of a father and daughter who are living off grid. You know, there's no electricity where they live. They have a well with a water pump, like, you know. And the whole time, you don't really know why they're living where they are, but we know that they're hiding. As you're finding out what's happening in the story currently, you're also finding out about their past. And a lot of people were like, oh my God, I can't believe what they did and why he ended up there. But that was not shocking at all. In fact, by the time we got to that revelation, I was like, well, obviously that's what happened. Like, clearly, what else would have happened? So if you're looking for like a big, crazy revelation, there isn't really going to be one about that part of the story, but the end is absolutely incredible. It goes places I never expected. It does things I never saw coming, which was really cool because I often see where things are going, especially in sort of more simple stories like this. And not that it's a simple story, but I really enjoyed it. These Silent Woods, I mean, it's always neat, I think, to read about people who are living off grid, so I like that to begin with, but then there's this really neat story involved. Okay, so the next one on this list is Us Dark Few by Alexis Patton. This is one of those stories about how the earth has been destroyed, and it's future, and the earth has been destroyed, and you can't live on the surface. So there's one under a bubble like town. I think it's called Genesis. And only the really, really wealthy, really, really privileged get to live there. And she, a friend of hers, takes a book and gives it to her to hold on to, and she doesn't turn it in. And and she's caught with it. And that is enough of a crime for her to end up in prison, for the rest of her life. And so she goes to, I think it's Broadmoor is what it's called, and it's a horrible place where the guards can do whatever they want to you, and if they kill you, whatever, you're just a prisoner, it doesn't matter. And if you don't, do the work that it's assigned to you, you're out, and for entertainment, there are these fighting pits. So, the different prisoners can fight each other to the death if that's what they want. And so it's just really not safe. And our main character is this small, strong-willed, amazing girl. Her name is Kulani, and she makes a couple of friends, and she starts working in the library archive, and she asks one of the really, really serious guards to train her so that she won't be as vulnerable in the fighting pits if she's ever thrown in them again. And relationships happen and things happen, and I can't really give anything else away, but it's definitely a series. This is just the first one. I will probably read the next one because I'm curious. So we'll see. The next one is William by Mason Coyley, I think is how you pronounce that last name. William, oh, this is a really interesting story. So William is an AI sort of robot thing that has been created by a scientist who has agoraphobia. He can't leave his house. And he's married, and his wife leaves to go to work, but understands that he can't leave the house. And he basically just works in his lab, working on, for the most part, he's working on William, this AI robot thing. And he gives it, he shows up one day and it's given itself wheels so it can roll around. He's like, why did you give yourself, how did you know this isn't okay? And so he starts getting a little nervous, and then his wife brings a couple of her colleagues over for dinner, and to impress them and to try to save his marriage, the agoraphobic scientist introduces his wife and their dinner guests to William. And they live in a fully automated smart home. And so when William sort of takes over, they're very trapped, and they end up having to fight against this AI. The twist at the end is amazing. Amazing. Did not see it coming and was like, oh my God, that's so cool. And that makes so much sense. And I just loved it. So, okay. So those are my I'm not still thinking about it books. These are the books that I'm still thinking about. Okay, so the first one on here is Camp Damascus. It was written by Chuck Tingle, and it firmly falls into queer horror. So Camp Damascus is a camp that is in this small town that is mostly inhabited by evangelical Pentecostal believers. The Pentecostal church is the one that believes in, speaking in tongues is sent from God, or that you can handle snakes and they won't bite you because God has got you, taken care of. They truly believe in demons, and demons can possess you. They believe in the word of God, like hell is a place that is on fire, you know. Um, and there is the right way to live, which is following what Christ says. And there's the wrong way to live, which is not following what Christ says. And Camp Damascus is a conversion camp. Now, our main character, who explains to us that in this town, you go to high school till you're 20, okay, says she doesn't know a lot about the camp. She knows it's there, whatever. It's her church pastor is very instrumental in its creation and running it and whatnot, but she doesn't really know about anything that's going on. And, she's just happy to be, her parents' daughter and to be a important part of the evangelical society and, truly believing in God. And like, she'll say things like, well, I don't listen to that kind of music because that's not sanctioned by God, or I'm not going to wear that because God wouldn't be okay with that, or Jesus wouldn't be okay with that. So she's very inculcated with that way of thinking. And I don't think I can give anything else away without really ruining it, but she's going to discover some things about herself and her family, and it takes her a long time to even get to the point where she knows some things about herself. And then she's able to find some allies and try to be helpful to the kids who are stuck at Camp Damascus. And the end is one that I wanted to literally stand up and cheer when I got to the end. When I was reading the end, I was like, yes, absolutely. That is awesome. That is how it should go. That's too cool. Like, I was just so excited. But it's, you got to get through the whole book to get to that awesome ending. And it's not that it's hard to get through. It's a good book. For a while there, you're just sort of confused. You're like, how does she know this person but not know this person? Or how does she know this but not know this? There's a lot of like, she should know more stuff than she does. It's really, Camp Damascus, Chuck Tingle, so good. I Who Has Never Known Men. Oh, I should have brought that book up here. This is an actual physical book that I read because it does not exist in online or in Audible version. It is called I Who Has Never Known Men, and it was written by Jacqueline Hartman, and it is different from anything I have ever read. Ever. And I am still thinking about it a lot. So it's the story of... our main character doesn't have a name. She's the girl because she is imprisoned with 39 women in sort of this bunker prison, and she's just a girl when they're put in there. She doesn't have any memories before that. And everyone else is a grown-up, so they just call her the girl, right? And this is where she grows up. This is what she lives. This is the only thing she knows, is this captivity where they're given scraps to make clothing, and they're given, like raw food that they have to cook. They've got a place to cook food in their cell, whatever. And there's guards that come in. They're never by themselves. It's the only men that she's ever seen are these guards, and they just walk by. They don't talk to her. They don't look at her, nothing. And at one point, an alarm goes off, like an alarm that the entire world can hear kind of alarm. And in her bunker, it just happens to be the moment when the guards are opening their cells. They've opened their cells so they can give them their food. The alarm goes off, and every guard drops what they're doing and runs. And the women in this bunker can get out because the gate is open. The cell is open. They've opened the door and they just left. They didn't lock it and close it again. They just left. So these 40 women get up to the surface and start to look around and try to figure out what's going on. And when I tell you, you don't get any answers, like, I think it's important for you to know, because like there's a point where they're discussing, they're like, is this even Earth? Because they walk and walk and walk, and like the the weather doesn't change, and like the something's weird about the sun, and like there's just some things that they're like, is this even Earth? Like what is going on? And the only thing that they find are other bunkers just like theirs, but in those other bunkers are 40 dead women because the guards were not opening their doors when the alarm went off. And it's really just the girl's life. And it follows her until she expires. And it's the way she looks at the world is so different from everybody else. And the thing that she's able to do are so different from everybody else because she was not raised like everybody else. There's so many philosophical things that I could discuss about this. Like she has a fight with one of the women where she's like, just teach me to read. And the woman's like, why? What is the point of teaching you to read? We have no books. We have no paper. We have no pencils. We have no pens. Why should I teach you to read? That's like useless. There's nothing for you to, and of course they end up getting out and they find, the guards' quarters, and the guards' quarters have tons of books, so she does end up getting to learn how to read. But, there's a lot of just fights about tell me about this. And they're like, we don't want you to know. It's better if you just don't know. It's better for your sanity. And she's like, no, it's better for me to know. I want to know. It's really neat sort of discussion about, innocence and ignorance, and ignorance is bliss, is it? And all that. So I Who Have Never Known Men, such a great book, but you do have to get the actual physical book to read it. Oh, okay. I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream by Harlan Ellison. I think most of you probably have heard of this story. It's one that I had been hearing about for a really long time, but I hadn't read. So it was actually one of the first books I read this year, or it's more like a short story or like a long short story. But I Have No Mouth and I Must Scream is about an AI that takes complete control over our universe, our world, and kills every single human except for 4 because Am is what it's called. Am wants to torture humans for fun, for eternity. So when the AI discovers what free thought is and what humanity is and all that stuff, it gets really mad because it cannot experience humanity the way that humans can. So it can't experience feelings and experiences, and like it has the knowledge of it, but it can't actually experience it, and it makes it so mad that it destroys all of the people. So there's 4 people, and they're like living in an AI. So the AI can do kind of anything to them. Like one of the men is like mostly like an ape. The main character, the one who is the only one that seems to really understand that he's stuck in a computer simulation, like the rest of them don't even realize that their existence is what it is. He actually knows, and he's able to figure out a way to kill his 3 companions so that they don't have to be tortured anymore. But Am gets a hold of him before he's able to kill himself. So Am turns him into this fleshy lump so that he can't expire, and he's left feeling like I have no mouth and yet I must scream. It's devastating, but I didn't go in not knowing about it. Like I knew, I'd heard of Am, I'd heard of, so I would have loved to have known what I would have thought of it if I didn't know anything about it before reading it. But Harlan Ellison, that is a world famous, upsetting, creepy story. Okay, next on this list is I'm Glad My Mom Died, which was the only autobiography that I read. Actually, I listened to this one because this one is written by Jeanette McCurdy, and she actually reads the audio version. And if I can hear a biography out of the voice of the person who wrote the biography, I will do that. Like, for instance, Trevor Noah's Born a Crime. Of course I'm going to listen to him tell it. When he says I, he means I. It's awesome. Same thing with Jeanette McCurdy's. Now, she played, I think it was Sam on iCarly, so she was a Nickelodeon actress as a child actress. And this is And when I first read the title, I was like, oh, this is going to be about an abusive mom. You know, I'm glad my mom died. And for the first at least 50, maybe more like 60 or 70% of the book, she and her mom are best friends. She and her mom are as close as two people could possibly be. And the way that her mother manipulates her and hurts her and abuses her is unbelievable. And this woman is an incredible writer. Apparently she wanted to write when she was younger, and her mother was like, burst into tears and was like, you're not going to be an actress? So I think maybe she was always destined to be an author and not an actress. But she's already written, I believe she's already written a novel. I haven't read it, but she's a great writer. So she could be very visceral. I could really feel everything that she was dealing with. And it was fascinating, very, very fascinating. And I highly recommend if you enjoy disturbing. Okay, so next on this list is The Divine Farce. This is one of my favorites. So Michael S.A. Graziano, I believe is how you say that name. The Divine Farce. Okay, so The Divine Farce opens up with three people inside a tube that is just barely big enough for the three of them. They are naked. There is no light source, so it's completely pitch black inside this tube. They have to stay standing. It's two men and a woman, and the woman is sort of small enough that she can sort of crouch down if she wants to, but that's like the best she can do in terms of changing her position. And a sort of nectar drips from above them. It's the tube above and below are grated, but again, no light. And nectar comes through, and that's how they get their nutrients. And there's a grate at the bottom, so their waste just falls out of this tube. And they sort of become one, the three of them. They know every part of each other. They know everything they can know about each other. I mean, they're in this tiny little space all the time. You know, they sort of become a three-person entity, right? And our main character is using his tongue to figure out the patterns and the texture of the tube they're in, because he discovers that your tongue is actually even more sensitive than your fingers. It's true. And he gets to a spot on the wall on the tube that seems to be flaking away. And it flakes away enough that a little bit of light comes in. And his two companions first start to scream, like, "What? Don't ruin our whole world," you know. But he eventually breaks his way out, and they fall to the ground. You know, they're a few feet up in there. They don't get hurt, and there's just filth. And this three-person entity end up losing each other in the throng of people that are also naked and filthy and were probably in tubes of their own, but are now in this labyrinthian cave system kind of thing, it's explained as. And some people are just down hallways, just languishing in misery, because you can't die here. I'm pretty sure this is like the afterlife. So you can't die here, but if you want to fight for food, there are these like biscuit wafer things that you can fight your way through the throngs to try to get to, and then you'll have a little bit of food. There's also water that comes out of rusty pipes, but again, you have to fight your way to getting to the water. But eating the food and drinking the water does make you feel better. Okay. So he's just, he's figured out that he can fit 5 of those biscuits into his mouth because, they don't have clothes, they don't have any place to put things. So in his mouth is really the only place they can go. And that's how many he can fit without anyone else knowing that he's got them, so they won't fight him and try to take them from him. And he's figured out, like once he gets the biscuits, he wants to make his way to the water because the biscuits are better if they've been soaked in water a little bit because they're so hard. And, so he's got sort of this like routine down. And he's sitting with his biscuits, and because he only fights for those things when he has to fight for them. And he is watching as Oh, there's all sorts of animals in there too. I forgot to mention. Like, I mean, there's like a giraffe, there's a wolf, there's a, like every, I guess, kind of animal that has died also. So he sees a bat and he's watching the bat fly around, and then he sees it go through the ceiling, like through what's covering them. Like there's holes and you can get, so his new plan is to figure out a way to get up there. And if he can get up there, what will it teach him and what will he learn? And he does make it up there, but then he ends up coming back. Like the whole thing is just another one that I could spend days discussing the philosophy of. You know, what makes us human, what defines our existence, how much is community a part of who we are. There's some really, really big ideas in this story, and I would love to be in a really intellectual book club reading this book, because it would be very interesting to hear what very, very smart people have to say about the divine farce. Very good. Okay, next on my list is The Hike by Drew McGarry, and I am working on a full description of this one. It is so good. It is so fun. It is so devastating. It is, so there's a man he's and we don't even really know what he does for a living, but he's going to a hotel in the Poconos where he's going to meet a potential customer and have a business dinner. He gets there early, he checks in, he asks the lady behind the counter if there's any hiking trails. She says, no, there's no hiking trails around here. There's no hiking trails. Of course there's hiking trails. We're in the Poconos Mountains. There's hiking trails everywhere. What are you talking about? And he heads down one of the hiking trails and sees some things that scare him, turns around and tries to run back and finds that he can't find his way back. And he spends the rest of the story, decades upon decades of the story, on this path, trying to make it back to his family and his life. And he, on his way, this story is very Dorothy waking up in Oz, Alice waking up in Wonderland kind of story. He encounters weeds that have roots that are 30 feet long. He is gifted 3 seeds that, if thrown onto the ground at the right time, will become a tower, a werewolf, or a wall of fire, but only used in the right times. He will encounter and spend time with a giant woman who's about 35 feet tall and whose favorite snack is humans, though she doesn't really like the hairy ones. He will become friends with a blue crab that talks. He will become friends with a Spanish adventurer from the 1400s. He will come in contact with a taloned and winged demon that will kill him if he just looks upon it. He runs into smoke demons, that they're just demons made of smoke, so if they want to kill him, they just have to choke him. They just go down his throat and choke him. Among a lot of other things and wacky things that he runs into and has to deal with. And it's fascinating. And there is a freaky piece of information near the end that is just such a cool, shocking little twist that is so awesome. This book I've actually read, I think 3 times now. And it's great. It's an adventure. It's a, into Wonderland, into Oz, on the path adventure. It's really neat. Okay, so 4 more books. The next one is The Past is Red by Catherine M. Vellante. This one is also, obviously we're at the point where I love all of these books, but this one was awesome. So this is the story of Garbage Town. And Garbage Town it's the future. It's an apocalyptic future. Think Waterworld, the entire planet is flooded. And people are living on the mass of garbage that's floating in our oceans. And we've got some of these now. Like, these exist. But this one is the size of Texas, and when she's living on it, decades after it was created, decades after the Great Sorting, where they went through everything and they made sections. So she grew up in Candlehold, where all the candles went, and Electric Town is where everything that's battery powered or gas powered, and all the gasoline and the batteries and everything, and anything that needs electricity is there. She finds a room that's filled with trophies, and they call the people who were on Earth, so like us, they call them the fuckwits. Excuse my language, but that's what she calls them. She's like, those fuckwits on Earth, they didn't know what they were doing. And it's sort of a treatise on our excess as a global pandemic, as human beings, that there's an entire society of people that are surviving on our leftover garbage. And Tetley, the main character's name is Tetley, and she is the most hated girl in Garbage Town, but I'm not going to explain to you why. And it's really fascinating because even though she's the most hated girl in Garbage Town, she absolutely loves Garbage Town. And she has this amazing attitude about how lucky she is and how happy she is to be able to live where she is, and that she's not a fuckwit, and that she's not, like, she's got the most amazing attitude. And the world building, the different areas and the different traditions and the things that they do living in Garbage Town is just fascinating, and I really, really enjoyed it. I still don't understand why it's called The Past is Red, but that's okay. So if you read it and know, please let me know. Okay, next on this list is The Seep by Hannah Porter, and The Seep is about an alien invasion, but the aliens are not corporeal, meaning they don't have mass, okay? So it just sort of seeps into it just sort of becomes part of things, right? So it's something you ingest. It's something you experience. It's something that connects itself to you. And it has provided a level of comfort and happiness that has never been seen before on Earth. Because if you're on Seep and like you touch a wooden table, you are going to be connected not only to the person who created that table, but the tree that the table originally was. So it connects things in this wonderful way so that respect for other things becomes innate. Pets aren't on leashes anymore because it's a symbiotic relationship. It's not that one's owning the other. It's more of a, like, we understand each other because they can truly understand each other. At one point, the character says, she goes to a Seep restaurant and someone says, how's your meal? And she says, it's great, of course. And I always hope that it's not going to be, because when you go to a Seep restaurant, you don't order. They bring you what your body needs. So everyone gets a different meal with different amounts and different portions and different things. Because it's what their body specifically needs at that time. And it's also going to be exactly what their body wants physically. Like, they're going to enjoy the actual consuming of it. And I understand that. And it becomes this question of if everything that is best for us and is making us happiest is just provided to us and it's not something we need to figure out, where's the humanity? Like, where's the personality? Where's I'm different than you, right? If we can never feel pain and never feel sickness and never be upset, are you really living a human existence? It's fascinating. She goes on a quest to try to help this young man that she meets on the street and ends up helping herself, which is very cool. Okay, The Third Parent by Elias Witherow. So I mentioned earlier that Elias Witherow wrote The Black Farm, which is the video that's done the best on my channel. And so I read other books by him. One was that I mentioned earlier, the Final Tower. This is The Third Parent. And they're actually turning this into a movie, which will be I don't know how they're going to do that, but they'll figure out a way. But it's the story of a man who shows up at the front door of a perfectly normal, everyday family, American family, right? Mother, father, daughter, son. And this man shows up and he says, his name is Tommy, and he says he's going to help raise the kids. And it turns out copies of him are in almost all of the houses in this neighborhood. So this neighborhood is sort of taken over by Tommy. And his parenting style is very sadistic. If you don't do what he says, he's going to hurt someone so that you learn to do what he says. And when I say hurt, I mean seriously injure. Like seriously, seriously injure. Torture, hurt, maim, awful, awful things Tommy's willing to do. And the family is just trying to get away and figure out a way away from this guy. And the boy in the family at the beginning is the grown man at the end of the book. That's all I'm going to tell you. I did a full description, so if you want to know without reading it, it's on my channel. Check it out. But it was a rough adventure that they go on in trying to get away from this guy and deal with this guy. And he seems to have control, and he's horrifying. Third Parents. I think filming starts in the fall, or maybe they're filming now and it's coming out at the end of the year. But I think 2026 is the date, so it probably will be out like beginning of 2027. The final book on this list is You Were Not Meant to Be Human. Now, I did a little teaser on this one. This is written by Andrew Joseph White, and again, this is queer horror, and it's about a trans male who is mute and autistic and has run away from home and joined a cult that worships this worm hive conglomerate creature. Does that make sense? Probably not. Crane is the name of the main character, and he is very unhappy. And you find out his history. It's in a lot of ways I found it really disturbing, just in the fact that he is dead naming himself throughout the entire story. He keeps talking about and calling, who he was before and calling that person by his dead name. And that just made me so uncomfortable. And I mean, I get it. And if anyone can use a dead name, it's the person whose name it was. But the cult is like one aspect of it, and then like other supportive people in his life are another part of it, and then his family, actual family, like his parents, are a whole nother part of it. And it's like, where does he belong and where will he be happiest? The cult wants to use him, and because he felt necessary to them, he joined them. But of course, cults are never the right choice. I'll tell you that right now. But yeah, You Were Not Meant to Be Human. It was probably one of the most disturbing books I've ever read because of the way... I didn't tell you the most disturbing part. So the most disturbing... So this trans boy, male, is in a sexual relationship with someone and gets pregnant. And the cult refuses to let him get rid of it because they want it. And it is so horrifying being in the mind of a trans man who is pregnant and doesn't want to be. You know, I've definitely, I mean, we've all seen, I don't know, we all have, but we've all seen the stories about the trans men who get pregnant and they're thrilled. They want to have a baby. They're thrilled to have a baby. It's adorable and wonderful. And this is not that. This is, I mean, at one point, he writes a note to the person he's having sex with that says, if you get me pregnant, I will unalive myself. Like, don't do that. If you do that, that's it. I'm done. I'm not living through that. And, you know, and he has to stop taking his testosterone because he's pregnant. Like, there's just so many awful things that he has to deal with because of what this cult wants from him. It's devastating. But the ending shocked me, but I liked it, which was also nice. So those are I think it's 45. So those are the 45 books that I have read in the first 6 months of 2026 and what I thought of them. And I hope you got some ideas on some books to pick up and check out and read and enjoy. If you're still here, thank you so much. I would really appreciate a thumbs up or a comment or, you know, interact in some way. And if you're not subscribed, I'd love for you to subscribe. I'm trying to get to 500 subscribers, which is just a sad thing to say because usually you hear people talking about, I just want to get to 100,000 or I just want to get to 1,000,000 and I just want to get to 500. But I'm glad that there are some of you that have found me and are actually enjoying my stories. It means a lot to me. I really appreciate it. Other than that, do me a favor and be nice to yourself. You are the only self you're going to get, and you are precious and important, and tomorrow needs you. So do me a favor and stick around. I will catch you next time. Bye. In the gel bar, in the, have some wonderful memories. That's not good. Is Yesteryear by Caro.